Hello again, everyone. I thought I'd quickly go over what changes Mod 22 brought to the PvP scene and how they affect PvP builds. Most of the information in my Mod 21 videos on various build components is still usable. This video will simply explain what actually did change between then and now. Without further ado, let's get into the content. In a nutshell, Mod 22's meta is very similar to Module 19's meta. Player damage output is a lot higher in Mod 22 than it was in Mod 21. This is because Mod 22 increased everyone's item level significantly. It is now possible to reach 80k item level in PvE content. In PvP content, most optimized builds will now be around 50k item level or higher. Companion item level sources still work in PvP, but in Mod 22 are no longer worth running in PvP matches. You'll want to make sure you keep your companion desummoned when queuing onto PvP maps now. This is because you can now get all the item level you need from better sources that actually come with stats attached. Running with a companion summoned drops your stats too much. The enchantment system also got a complete rework. You now need fewer enchantments, but the ones you do have provide significantly more stats and item level than the retired enchantment types did. As a much more bizarre change, all of the old weapon and armor enchantments were scrapped and replaced with 6 new options. Those new options are a mishmash of copy-pasted effects from some of the old enchantments. You can now only slot either an offensive combat enchantment or a defensive combat enchantment. You can no longer wear both at the same time. All 3 of the new defensive combat enchantments as of writing this are riddled with major bugs. Those bugs are the kind that are likely to be fixed within the next few weeks, thankfully. Soul Shield enchantment currently has no cooldown for its revive effect. Flash Freeze has a 100% proc rate. And Fortified Nature's Defense doesn't show up on your character sheet, which may or may not mean the defense doesn't work. The offense combat enchantments are currently weaker than the defensive combat enchantments are. But nobody is really competing in PvP right now, and you can certainly still function with an offensive combat enchantment. Crowd control effects also last longer now for many players in Mod 22. This is because Elven Battle Enchantment no longer exists. And some brand new heavy CC items were released. Some players hate that Elven is gone now, and others feel like conditions improved a little bit from that. If PvP still had a competitive system, this CC duration increase would be a huge problem though, due to how many CC effects would be overlapping. In Mod 22, the placement of the classes in comparison to each other doesn't appear to have actually changed so far. But burst damage classes such as Barbarian and Rogue do have a lower skill requirement to do well on than they did in Mod 21. Whisper Knife Rogue, for example, has become easier to manage and isn't quite such high strain to play anymore. DPS Cleric also is doing better than it was the previous mod. It is generally harder to build Tanky in Mod 22 than it was last mod, but it's still possible to build Tanky. A viable method of making yourself tanky involves stacking 2 defensive stat ratings instead of 1, such as 56% defense ratings. A viable method of making yourself tanky involves stacking 2 defensive stat ratings instead of 1, such as 56% defense standing still and abnormally high awareness, deflection severity, or critical avoidance. You'd need 40 for one of those 3 stats to do this, plus extra sources that build up in combat. Pair this with a defensive combat enchantment such as Fortified Nature or Flash Freeze. Have high HP, and really good self-healing. You'd probably want some defensive items like Gon's Anvil of Creation and Wisps of the Shadow Demon for this too. Some classes have class powers that make this easier, such as Warlock's self-healing encounter power. There have been some new interesting gear releases as well. I haven't looked at those much, but I do know there are some new deflection severity granting pieces, and several that offer really nice offense stats. Mod 22 is better than Mod 21's meta for PvP overall, if you are playing private PvP matches that use an item ban list. It should improve further when the enchantment bugs from Flash Freeze and Fortified Nature get fixed and people adjust their builds. On the downside, solo queue has been absolutely destroyed by Mod 22's broken item issues. On the downside, solo queue has been absolutely destroyed by Mod 22's broken item issues, combined with older broken item issues that still haven't been resolved. I was able to host solo queue matches 50% of the time for most of Mod 21, but shortly into Mod 22, it became apparent that solo queue is ruined. The two items that had the largest impact in causing the PvP community on PC to stop popping solo queue matches were Soul Shield Enchantment and the Giant Toad Tongue Lash Mount Combat Power. There are no shortage of other items that contributed as well. PvP matches have continued to occur in Mod 22 as normal. All of them are private matches now for PC. That is everything for now, guys. See you next time.